Last week, I sat down with one of our clients on a 30-minute Zoom call and helped them set up a automation or an integration on Zapier, whatever you want to call it. We helped them set up an automation and integration that saved them 4 to 5 hours per week in data entry. And it was so impactful that I wanted to create a video on my channel to show you how to do the same. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael McAllister. I'm the founder of a marketing company called Empower LO. We use a lot of marketing automation technology every single day. And so I made this channel as a way to document what we're doing and see if we can help other business owners, other marketers, other operations managers out there working at small business, help them streamline their business, their operations, their marketing as well, and ultimately, ideally, grow their business. Now, before I dive into the Zapier integration, let's first talk about what Zapier is. Now, Zapier, you may have heard it referred to as Zapier. I don't know. I don't care what the official name actually is. I've heard this so many times go back and forth over the last 6 years since we've been using Zapier. I really don't care. We're going to call it Zapier in this video. What is Zapier? Well, Zapier is a no-code tool that allows you to connect two systems that are not related by nature, right? That are not integrated by nature through what is called their API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. And basically what this is, it is a set of code that a company writes as a way for other companies to access their information in a controlled manner. So, requiring things like authenticating and identifying exactly who it is that is trying to access the information, as well as controlling what information they have access to. So, for example, if a mortgage CRM has an open API, then they don't want to allow access to something like a social security number. So they're going to allow access to maybe their name, their email address, their phone number through their API, but they're not going to allow you to access their social security number. That's an API is in place so that companies can communicate between two different unrelated softwares while also not just completely opening the door for anybody, nefarious or not, to walk through and cause ruckus, basically. So what is Zapier? Well, Zapier is basically a interface. It's essentially lipstick that makes it so that you don't have to know how to write code in order to do an integration, in order to use two different APIs and create a connection from one software to another. You don't have to know how to do any code. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with Zapier, ranging from extremely advanced to extremely beginner friendly, right? And the one that we're going to go through today is very, very beginner friendly. Basically, the example that I'm going to take you through is going from one CRM, a lead coming in one CRM, and posting it into another CRM. I'm using this as an example, not because I think it's an extremely common use case, but because I think it's a use case that allows you to use your imagination a lot. I think that there's a lot of double data entry that takes place in any business, and if you can think of Zapier as a way to eliminate anything right out of the gates, it's definitely double data entry. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'll show you exactly what it is that I'm talking about. All right, so before we dive too far into this, I wanted to show you guys your options as far as interacting with Zapier, as far as signing up for Zapier. Zapier comes with a free plan. It's a freemium model where the free plan is not very useful. You're likely not going to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish for very long with the free plan, but it will give you the ability to at least sign up and play around a little bit. The first level of plan that really you should be looking at is this starter plan. Again, $20 a month. That's billed annually. If we switch to monthly, that switches to $30 a month. Now, Zapier can start to get pretty expensive if you're using this for advanced functionality. If you're using a lot of multi-step zaps. Some of our zaps have 10, 15 steps in them. And so at some point, it makes sense to kind of graduate from using Zapier for a lot of the functionality that you might get used to using and start to move on to something where you have a little bit more control over the usage, and you don't necessarily have to be subject to the pricing model. Where, like I said, right now we're probably we're at between 50 and 100K tasks, so we're spending between $600 and $900 on a month on Zapier. I think for most people, they're probably going to be able to get away with no more than $1,500, a $60 a month plan. And once you see what's possible, what you're able to do with Zapier, you will see it as 110% worth every penny that you're investing into it. Okay, we've seen the plans, so let's go ahead, let's dive in, and let's see what it looks like to create a Zap. Well, the first thing that we're going to do, if you hover over the menu on the left-hand side, you'll see the button that says Create Zap. Now, what you have to understand when it comes to Zapier, really when it comes to any automation tool, HighLevel is the same way, by the way. I did a video on what is HighLevel. HighLevel is the software that we're going to be adding the lead that we are getting from another CRM, adding it into. HighLevel is something that you're going to hear me talk a lot about. Amazing software, marketing automation platform. They have automations within HighLevel called workflows. Workflows work the same way that a Zap does, and that is by having a trigger and then having a set of actions that follow the trigger. So the trigger is exactly what it sounds like. The trigger is what triggers the set of actions that are going to follow. So what is it that is telling Zapier or telling your other software platforms, hey, something's taking place, you need to do something. So we're going to, this is all easier when we're using a specific example. So again, I'm going to go back into the real estate CRM that we were working in yesterday that kind of started the inspiration to start this, make this video anyways. So Sierra Interactive. So we were working with Sierra Interactive. We had a client whose referral partner was sending them leads through their CRM, the referral partner CRM called Sierra Interactive. And so right now, or as it was, our client was logging into their CRM every day to get the leads that are getting referred to them, working those leads, and then going back to that CRM and updating the information inside of there. Obviously, this is not ideal. If we can have an ideal setup in this, if there is an ideal setup in this, it's going to be the lead comes in through the partner site or through the partner CRM. It automatically gets sent over to our CRM where we do whatever we need to do with it. And then anytime we take a relevant action, we communicate that back to their CRM. That's the ideal. That's what we are going for in this case. So we're going to use Sierra Interactive as our example. I'm going to show you guys examples of what different triggers look like. Now, one thing that you'll see is with all of these triggers, you see an instant badge over here. Now, instant triggers are something that's going to be reserved for at least, I think, a professional plan. Maybe the starter plan has it, but I think it's professional plan. Instant trigger, the alternative to an instant trigger is basically Zapier waiting and collecting information from the information source every 5 minutes or so, or every 15 minutes or so. So think about it this way. When you're trying to get information from one program to another program, there's two ways that you can do that. You can either push it from the old program into the new program, or you can pull it from the old program and then put it into the new program. So the difference between an instant trigger and a trigger that is not instant is going to be the difference between push and pull from a technical standpoint, meaning an instant trigger is one where when something takes place, the information is being pushed from the source software. So in this case, we're talking about Sierra Interactive. If we look at the events on here, we see new lead, new request for more info, new saved listing, new schedule showing request, new site visits. These are all instant triggers, meaning these are all things that when somebody does this action, performs this action that lives inside of Sierra Interactive, we can trigger a zap when that happens. And that is exactly what we are going to do in this case and on this video. For this video, what we're going to do is we're going to select new lead, right? That's the most basic one. So when a new lead comes in, we're going to continue. And now in this case, we've already integrated the page, we've already integrated the correct account in here just so that I don't have to show any secret data, any protected confidential data on the screen. But I'm going to show you what it looks like if we were to go in here and we were to add a new account so that I can show you a piece that most of you probably aren't going to know exactly what to do with when you see, which is the API key. Okay, so what is an API key? Well, we talked about earlier, API stands for Application Programming Interface. We also talked about how an API is there so that a company or a software can control access to what information they want to provide access to. And then they can differentiate what people get access to what information, or what programs get access to what information based on the authentication that's being passed. Is this an administrative function, or is this somebody else's CRM that has no business accessing our most intricate information? So the API key is what's going to tell the software what authentication that you have. They're going to take the API key that you put in here, they're going to cross-reference it with their list of API keys, and they're going to say, yes, this person is authorized, and this is what they are authorized to do. So in this case, in a lot of cases, what you'll see is that your Zapier API key is here. It'll provide you a link. If you click on that link, it'll take you to the spot within the software where the API key lives. If you cannot find your API key, but you go into Zapier and they want you to provide an API key, reach out to support. This is something that any software is going to know exactly how to help you with. If you tell them, hey, I'm trying to set up something in Zapier, I cannot find my API key, can you help me out? You will get support as long as they actually do support that functionality. So once you get your API key in here, now you'll see your account listed, which then gives you the ability to move on and create your trigger. So in this case, what we need to do is we need to select certain things, right? Everything that's asterisked right here is something that we need to define in order to be able to access this trigger. So in this case, we're saying, all right, it's this, this website. If I come in here, I'm going to go ahead and select who the actual agent is. If we come in here, we're just selecting the source. This one is not required. I do not have to do a source type, so I'm not going to, just for the sake of this video. But then we have source here. And it is going to tell me in here that I need to define what source. Now, sometimes APIs are super user-friendly. Sometimes they're really easy. Like sometimes you don't run into any issues. It's very self-explanatory, very straightforward. Sometimes you run into issues where you're working with a company that's not used to having people do advanced functionality, do integrations between two different softwares. So you got to watch out for that. In this case, they're requiring us to define a source. But what if I want to trigger this automation no matter what the source is? If I scroll through here, there are hundreds of sources in here. And so if I wanted to trigger based on all of those, it would appear as if I need to select each one of these sources over and over and over again in order to make this work, which would take just way too long. And so the alternative to this is if it seems like it should be easier than it is, then it probably is easier. It probably is easier, and you're probably just not doing it right. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and what I want to search is, can I do all sources? Can I do all sources? So I search all no, can't do that. What if I do source? We have other source. Boom, any source. Check that out. So because I was asking the question, man, there should be a way for me to be able to do this with all sources, it caused me to dig a little bit deeper and say, okay, I don't want to define every single source that's coming in. So is there another option? I typed in all because I thought it might be all source. There's nothing there. So it's any source. Okay. So now I can select this, and now I know a lead from any source is going to a new lead, right? If I go up here, what is the event? Event is new lead. So a new lead inside of this account from any source that is assigned to this agent and this website should in fact trigger this zap. And then the next step is to test your zap or test your trigger. And what this is going to do, ideally, it's going to go back and it's going to pull data that already existed in there, which is exactly what we're seeing here. Okay, so that's the ideal situation. In a lot of cases, that will not actually be the case. In a lot of cases, what you'll see is you'll actually have to send a test lead while you are testing. While you click that test button, you'll have to send a new test lead through in order to access your data. Again, sometimes that's not going to be the case. Sometimes they do what they did here, and they just pull the last couple examples for you, and they pull those through. So I'm going to try and avoid showing too much personal information in here so that I can avoid too much post-production edits. But now that we know exactly what this looks like, or now that we know, right, that we have a triggering lead coming through, now we can go down here and we can click continuous selected record. And now we're going to do the back half of our zap. Now the back half of our zap is the actions, or the string of actions that we're going to take. So again, every automation, whether it's a zap or a workflow inside of HighLevel, or a Zoho flow inside of Zoho, if you use Zoho, any automation that you're doing is going to have two pieces of it, two components of it. What is triggering the automation, and then what is the actual automation taking place? Well, we've defined our trigger in here as being the new lead in Sierra Interactive. Now we're going to go in and we're going to create the actual lead, right? Now we're going, so lead connector, by the way, lead connector is the white labeled Zap or the gray labeled Zap that belongs to HighLevel. So by selecting lead connector in here, what I'm actually doing is I'm adding a lead to HighLevel. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, all right, add or update contact, continue. I'm going to choose my account. I already have these obviously because I do a lot. Oh crap. Of course it's telling me to reset my authentication. Let me see if I can get one that's going to allow me to skip that. And now I'm connected. All right. So once we have our trigger configured, once we have our action step ready to go with our account linked up the way it's supposed to, the next step is to map the information from the trigger to the action step. So what does map mean? Well, keep in mind what we're trying to accomplish here. What we are trying to do is make it so that anytime a piece of information comes in our trigger, that information gets routed the same way every time, the right way every time to our destination. Like where, so from source to destination, we're trying to make this set of fields go over to this set of fields. And this set of fields over here has no idea, right? The set of fields at Sierra Interactive has no idea what the fields are supposed to look like when it sends it over to HighLevel. And so that's what Zapier is doing in between. That's what the process of mapping is doing. So check it out. We come in here and we pick one at a time. First name, all right, first name of lead. Last name, well, last name of lead probably, right? Phone number, see, not really that complicated. Now there obviously are more nuanced detail, more nuanced examples of this that we're not going to cover in here. But again, as a general idea, general rule, people overcomplicate this way more than they need to. It's not as difficult as you would think if you were to say, hey, I'm going to set up an integration between these two systems using Zapier and APIs. Like that sounds insanely intimidating when in actuality, it really isn't that difficult. Whether it's a HighLevel or it's, we can come in here and I could do the same thing with Google Sheets. That's the amazing thing about Zapier. If you haven't used it before, my gosh, hopefully I'm going to change your world after this because it is crazy what you could do with this. But I can come in here, I can create a spreadsheet row, I can define, let's see, define the spreadsheet that I want to add a row to. I can come in here and do that. There's so much that I can do, and it really is so much easier than people give credit to, which is why I wanted to create this video for you. Hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully I went deep enough for it to be valuable. If not, if you get stuck, if you want to set up something like this and you get stuck at any of these steps, please, please, please reach out in the comments, shoot me a private message, shoot me an email, go to empowerlo.com, submit a contact us form there, whatever you want to do to reach out and make sure you say, hey, you got me 75% of the way there, but I need the last 25%. I'm happy to help. Until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you at the top.